There you go. So we left off last week on chapter 5, creative expression. And that was on page 31 to 33. So these were pretty short chapters, but they all kind of went together. So last week we talked about cosmic consciousness and that it was complete conscious unity with God, and that the way that we achieve cosmic consciousness was by intensifying one's awareness, by much aloneness and companionship with God, while manifesting Him in every moment and in every task of life. So that's what we covered last week. So this week we're going to talk about creative expression. And with creative expression, we are going to find out what it is to create. So from Walter Russell, to create, we must first conceive. What we must do to conceive. What must we do to conceive? And from page 31, it is stop thinking. Thinking but expresses the power which lies in knowing. So within Walter Russell's cosmology, we have thinking and we have knowing. And what happens is, God imagines, he has imaginings, and man thinks within the thinking mind. And through that thinking, expresses the power which lies in knowing. Any comments on that from the participants? If whoever is on the phone or can only hear us but can't talk, I can bring up Telegram, and you can put in some notes within Telegram if you want, and I can look at Telegram to see if there's anything that.
Did you see a message from Doug in the chat?
In chat, let me see.
He
here.
just put a message, something about unmuting the phone.
Okay, let's see here.
Maybe he called the number.
For some reason, I am not seeing my chat on here. See participants, share, annotate. Under more, share, hide, disable annotation.
He says the
I was
201 number is me.
Okay.
Can you unmute it, Will, as the admin of this Zoom call?
Okay, let me see.
That 201 number is me. That's Doug.
Ask to unmute.
Yeah.
Or is there?
Okay, that's it.
We got it.
You're in. Hello.
Hey, how you doing? Sorry about that insanity.
Okay.
That's good. At least I'm glad we got another participant. So we just, I don't know if you heard or not, but
I heard everything, yes.
Okay. So any thoughts on what does stop thinking but expresses the power which lies in knowing?
I thought he said that we don't think, that he thinks.
No, he imagines. God imagines and we think.
Well, stop thinking. I mean, I guess we have to. Clear our head, like to focus on the stillness, I guess.
Is that contradictory to focus on the stillness? Is stop thinking in some ways trying to call that out, that thinking is a focusing effort, and that in order to that you have, I guess it's the concentration and decentration aspect.
And when I was kind of doing this, I was just wondering, because as we're moving from God's imagining into thinking and then into matter, correct? I was wondering if that's from the power of knowing we go, because the topic that we're dealing with here is creation.
Right.
And with creation, that is matter. And so as we begin to create, we stop thinking and go into knowing. Because if we want,
like believing it, in other words, like doing it, not just thinking about it, being it.
being it, and I don't know if anybody watches Greg Braden when he talks a bit about the healers, the healers in Tibet that say that,
Yeah.
you don't think they're going to get well, you know it as if it's already.
It absolutely works too. I mean, there's no question in my own life. When I didn't know any of this, and I planned some insane, concepts and they worked. And years later now, looking back, it worked because I just knew it was going to happen. It didn't matter how crazy it was.
And I can
it's
also
pretty amazing. It's really true. There's no doubt in my mind it is.
And I know that they had conversations with Carl Jung, and they were asking him, well, what do you believe and what do you think? He says, I don't believe, I know.
Right.
And so you see this idea of, what's past belief, what's past is knowing.
That's why people who work on themselves, like I'm going to do this, and it never works. But when they don't try, they get it. Such as saving money, as an example.
It's like another way of saying, like, sometimes when we think too hard, if we let it go and it I don't know, it just comes to you. It's kind of when you least expect it to.
Just do it.
I think it's different for everyone. I mean, for me, that happens to be true, but there seems to, if you look on the internet anyway, maybe they're lying, but these people with the power of attraction story, this is how you have to do it, and they claim that they can bring in money by doing blah, blah, blah. Whether it's true or not, obviously, I never even bothered to try because I knew it doesn't work. It won't work for me. I don't need it to work either, though, but that's another point. Well, now at this age, maybe I did 30 years ago.
I mean, I've always thought that there's effort, but it's like a different kind of effort. Like it's like effort of will. You still have to work hard for things, right?
No. I believe so, yes.
Yeah.
You have to be focused only on what you want to do. And if you're not focused on failing, in my case, it seems to, or even thinking about failing,
right,
it seems to be, very easy.
Right.
But that's I think it's a personal thing, though. I think some people can actually plan it out. I can't speak for that, though.
So we have the concept, the things that we do know, and these are things that are talked about in the previous chapters, such as God has imagining and that there's a cosmic consciousness. And so once we stop thinking, which may be like mulling things over, scheming, whatever it is, trying to figure things out. And it may even be like we've talked about in the past too, with as athletes, or Michael Jordan said, he doesn't try to overthink the game. He lets the game come to him. And he finds that he has a lot more success in just letting things come, and maybe in the knowing that it's going to happen, versus trying to plan, scheme, and think all the time about how to do things. Because really, I think maybe it was Santos talked about that when we think, we're either in fear, of the future or in despair of the past. And so that's what our thoughts give us. And it's only in the present and the knowing where we actually have serenity and peace with God. Anybody else on the knowing?
Well, I agree with 100%. I mean, even people I know, I have a friend who just, says, I just live in the moment, and whatever he's planning, he just does, and he's successful.
Mhm.
He bought a dump truck. He says, oh, I'm going to be dumping garbage. And he actually has a business now. He's dumping garbage for people. I mean, he spent like 30 grand on the stupid thing. But God bless him.
Yeah, he's aligned. Yeah.
So when I pulled up the waiting room, I have somebody in the waiting room here.
Oh,
It's a phone number. It's not a
could be Robert.
ask to unmute.
I think it's *6 is what I had to use.
To unmute?
Yeah, to unmute. There he goes. You got it.
Good.
Oh, no, it's me.
But no, that we know is you, that one, the green one.
I think it was *6 to unmute.
Yes, it's *6 to mute and it's *6 to unmute.
Yeah, good. Well, that's what I got when I clicked the link.
Yeah, correct.
So when we look at this diagram here, right, it says there is but one mind, which is cosmic substance, and then that filters down through evolution is the concentration desire of mind to create the idea of many substances out of the one. And then the dissolution is the decentration desire. So as this one mind comes down and filters down, it comes into matter.
Is he saying evolution like Darwin's evolution?
No, I think he's just talking to evolution as the generic term of evolving,
Okay.
of an idea of the mind evolving into matter. And one cosmic substance, which is mind. So we can mull that a bit, but let's look at what our next question is. How does Walter Russell define inspiration? On page 32, it is the language of the communion between God and man as one person. Has anybody had inspiration from God where they felt in communion with God and being inspired by a still small voice? Or
But I think what's so interesting about this is that I felt that so clearly. I've described to you previously how like that all kind of snapped into place when I discovered Walter Russell's work, and I kind of understood intuitively some of these concepts. And then at the same time, like despite somehow knowing them or feeling that what he's saying is true, I almost feel further away from it as time goes by, and I realize, oh, it's not like I was just kind of bestowed a glimmer into how things really are. Now you could just go get it. I'm a little bit like, where do I go from here? This is surprising. Like the road opened up, but now I have to learn how to walk. I didn't realize I didn't know how to walk.
well, it appears that at least now during this time, and whether or not people, if you believe in astrology or the planet alignment and what's going on, but as we approach, as Saturn begins to de-evolve our systems and we begin to have a little bit more critical thought about it, we see that much of our learning is not true. And the things that we actually feel intuitively or in our gut or sense are really what is true. So we are all, it's almost as you look at the quote that I have on the screen, when our knowing exceeds our sensing, we will no longer be deceived by the illusion of our senses. So, what he's saying here is that because we have senses, we rely on them because they're much more tangible to us than our knowing. And so we often use those as the primary mechanism for knowledge or information. And what he's saying here is when our knowing exceeds our sensing. So as we get back to what is inspiration, it's when our knowing that there is a higher source that we can have relationship and communion with and find inspiration from that. Because what inspires man today? Greed. I want more money, right? That's my inspiration. What is it that I want? I want more food. What is the inspiration for man today? Is it in his knowing? Is he looking for a purpose, a higher purpose from a creator? Or is he looking actually to satisfy his senses? And he uses
Absolutely. Look to satisfy senses.
And that's what, and that's
unbelievable,
Mm.
in my opinion.
Mhm.
And people live in their head. They think they are their head. They think they are the body,
Mhm.
in my experiences.
Well, that's a step for sure. We all have done that step.
I still do it.
Well, yeah, but what I meant is eventually that, you know what, it gets kind of like, well, there's more to this than, okay, having another great meal somewhere, or, you know what I mean? Like there's more to life. Well, you get it when you get into crisis in your life and then you step back. And that's when you discover there's something else, you know?
Or once all your senses are filled and you're still empty.
Wha-
Yeah, well, and so many don't realize it, though. It's painful
No,
to even watch.
I know.
And I work with people that are just, blame. The blame game is all they want to do.
Mhm.
Mm.
They don't take responsibility for themselves, even. It's a tough world.
There's a lot of threads that run through this quote we have up, which is, sensing and knowing and illusion and senses. And he's not putting any judgment on this,
Mm.
don't be tied, that senses are bad or that, but he's just saying that when our knowing exceeds our sensing, and, how do we get to this knowing, right? Well, we search within, within our knowing of God and of maybe there's more answers to be found there than in what we sense and see. And my channel that I have is called Akashic Intelligence, right? And the concept behind that is that the Akasha, or you call it the source or whatever, that there is knowledge out there, which we call the Akashic Record, so there's the record, which is like the recording of events, past, present, and future, because everything's happening at one time. But then there's also an intelligence. It's more than just the knowledge or the capturing the event. It's actually the interpretation of the event. It's the knowing sense of what that is. not just the realization of the event, the sensation of the event.
So we talked about the analogy of the record player before
Mhm.
in the context of the Akashic Record or the source.
Mhm.
And that's a very simplified, like a one-dimensional version. And the way that I've been thinking about it since that conversation, and it's fit into other ideas that other people have shared, is that what we have this multi-dimensional property to us, and essentially instead of a one dimension traveling along the one-dimensional needle of the record player, it's a, I don't know, 5 or 12 dimension, I'm not quite sure, a lot of dimensions that the you know, the full breadth and depth of the universe has in its fixed expression, but we're able to move our lens through it in our own way. We control the navigation through this multi-dimensional space, and that's my idea of what our our conception is our free will is kind of moving that lens, moving the needle through this big space. I can imagine that, like, conceptually for just me, and when I get kind of confused when I try to apply that to all the other people that maybe also have their own 12-dimensional needles that are passing through this space. That's but I don't know, that's a little bit of how I've been seeing it.
But they all are you also. There is
right.
There is no separateness.
Right.
That's our own ego separating us out.
So are we we're co-creating this universe. Or there is just one creator and we are that one's harder to but,
we're a physical manifestation of his imaginings.
Right.
We play our part.
Yep.
We each have a part to play. We have to discover, well, it changes all the time too, anyway, so.
So the language of the communion between God and man as one person is inspiration. Number 3, what law does every great genius manifest? For page 32, that he is one with the God mind, that God in him is the source of every thought, and that he is inspired, which is the communion between him and God as one, by the omniscience and omnipotence within him, which makes his work enduring. So what Walter Russell is saying here is that this is a law, a natural law, that every great genius manifests. So within this answer, that the genius is one with the God mind, that God in him is the source of every thought, and that he is inspired by the omniscience, the all-knowing, and the omnipotence, the all-powerful, within him, which makes his work enduring. So are we saying here that if we don't have this inspiration, this genius, then our work will not endure? And only those works that do endure have this quality.
Well, you can see it in obviously in buildings, in architecture, not just in art, but in architecture, like somebody who's made a building that to this day is perfect or whatever, in perfect harmony or something.
Inspiring.
You can feel it, you know?
How many people do you think actually want to have that he is one with the God mind?
That
Did
they
it-
want, did you say?
Yeah, that they want, that they would, if you would ask them, do you want to be one with the God mind?
I think most that would don't want it, don't even understand it. Don't believe in God.
Mm-hmm. Or, I mean, but do you think that, if you ask, 100 people, do you think it'd be probably a very small percentage that would say, yes, I would want to have a one, or would I want to do what I want in my own thoughts?
Yeah, I don't know. I know it seems to me very few even believe in it, in God at all, though.
Mm-hmm.
I would imagine, though, that there are a fair number of people who may not believe in God, but maybe have a stronger connection to this genius than, maybe their thinking mind doesn't, but they could have an intuitive relationship. Because I mean, the power of your creation, there's a spectrum of, talking about enduring work. Like some people's work endure for quite a period of time, some people not as much, but everyone is creating. And certainly a lot of people don't have this belief in God, but they can still create and leave a big impact on the world to an extent. So yeah, what is that? What is belief? Like, do you like, can you know it without believing it? I'm not sure.
Well, go ahead, Giselle.
Well, I'll say one thing. If you're not, we have to take God that when people are not able to, I guess, connect to this source and they just think whatever, they only knew like they could create things that actually would not be good for us. So if there are people that come, and whoever that is, are able to connect to that and are able to manifest something that's enduring, I mean, I think it's a step. It's a percentage of the population that do that, and when you know that we come back, like we eventually get to do that. It's like a step, like, you know what I mean? Like you grow each time. So, but this enduring thing, I'm happy that it's something that comes from the blueprint from, up there, or, because that's the only thing that will be enduring, that will actually create something that will uplift, if you like. I like that word, enduring, that's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Has anybody ever experienced this? I know I have once. When I was in junior college, I was in a design class and I was kind of late to getting to my project. And I used to be, and I still am, an overthinker. So I used to really put a lot of thought into what I was doing. But since I was out of time and so on, we had to make these boards for different design topics. And this one was, I think it was harmony or something. And I just kind of had this thought came into my head of these kind of spires that were just very random, and just cut them out of paper and threw them down on the board. And it was like the best grade I ever got, and everybody was raving about how great it was. And it was probably the least amount of time I ever put into anything. but I just really went with the inspiration that of this vision I had in my head. So I really felt that was, because it was very different than anything I'd ever done, because everything else I had done was very angular, and this was very curvatured and just very free flowing. It was much more. So, but after I did that, I never really tried to explore that again. Everything else I had done after that was very thought out, very methodical. So I did experience once. Has anybody else ever had any experiences with that before when creating? Well, I guess we're going to have to try. Not try. We're going to have to decentrate, and maybe next.
Yeah, like, wow.
I could think of lots of little ones, but yeah. I guess what I was thinking about more was just like that idea of self-confidence and knowing that you could do something, and it just kind of coming out of your being. It seems a little bit of like what we're talking about, and certainly like the more connected you are, the more you'll really you'll harness that and exhibit it in your creation. But to what I was saying before, I think a lot of people can harness that to some degree without really knowing what they're tapping into, or having a belief about it. It's more like, I think a lot of people could attribute that to self-confidence, or just just will, which may be all the same thing. It's more about just recognizing where it's coming from.
Well, I also know for me that once I became more aware of source, you can see other people that, I mean, if you read the Bible or you read inspired writing, God can use whoever he wishes for his purpose, whether or not they believe in him or not. And for good and for evil. I mean, there's times where God says, I'm going to do this to this person or that to this person, or he's not responding to my goodness. We're going to put some trauma on him. So for me, I think a lot of it is that people don't understand their God, or don't understand their source, and that may be from what overlays or trauma they've been put on them in the past. So they have a hard time trusting that voice, or have a hard time really comprehending what that is. And go ahead, Doc.
It seems that the same, that they don't believe in that God is one thing, that we're all God, is how I look at it. But it's one thing to say it, but it seems most people don't buy it. In large groups. Anyway, when I've been in such situations, that they're like, they just don't buy it, which is not healthy, it seems, but that's their life. You can't tell them it's not healthy. It doesn't go over well if you tried. It's hard what you say with what's creative. Also, it's creative. Doesn't have to be art. It could be building a business, I guess.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, with software, I found that you can be very creative with how you make software. I mean, some people can't. The software isn't intuitive. It doesn't work. When you make it, at least for me, when I was making elegant software solutions, I was very inspired, because again, it's like I say with architecture, it's pieces and parts. You can use studs and stones and nails, or you can use code and different things to create, your GUIs and everything else. It's what are you choosing to build with, and what are you choosing to be creative with? It could be food, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it could be a cook. Or without a doubt. I mean, I was in the garment industry for 20 years. I mean, we stitched. So we, it was building the machines that created the end product.
Nice.
they were, that's what they were doing. They were creating. When one woman ran 12 machines. They were automatic, obviously. But she would hear the thread break, that kind of thing.
Mhm.
Oh,
It's pretty amazing. When people get in tune with something, it's pretty amazing to watch. When you're not in tune, you could get hurt, boy.
yeah.
That same woman, I think she got caught with one of the rollers of breast. It was horrible.
Oh.
Mm.
Turn around for a second. It wasn't that horrible, thank God.
Did we talk about attention before? The previous.
Yeah, we've talked about where you put your attention, where you put your intent.
Right. It's it's a different concept than focus, right? Yeah.
Well,
That was the kind of the broad, the decentrated kind of awareness of everything around you, right? That's kind of what
mhm. Well, like last week when I think it was you were talking about the stream. Was it you, or was it?
a bunch of us?
Yeah.
Maybe Yannick brought it
I
up.
think Yannick
but we
brought it
talked
up.
about it,
And and so, with this creative expression, the other AI I like besides Akashic intelligence is active imagination. Has anyone ever heard that term used before? It's a Jungian. It's a term by Carl Jung.
yeah. Not
Very-
familiar.
What was the term?
Active imagination. It's kind of where you get into a creative. It's almost like daydreaming in a sense, but you're actually in a self-hypnotic stage. And that's where that's what he uses as his term to talk about kind of this communion with God, active imagination. It was around in the 30s.
Yeah, there's no question. I've felt it when just working with IT. When you're focused on something for hours. And then when you're done, it's like you're coming out of another world almost. Depending on what you're doing, of course. But I've found that for hours. I'm like just gone. It's when you do your best work, for sure.
Mhm. Yeah, I know that when I'm designing for architecture, I can lose time going to a realm that's lost for hours.
That's a good place to be.
I remember
Yeah.
it fondly.
Mhm.
Before kids.
Well, that's one of the suggestion that the meditation teacher that I do a seminar with, he said, try to not think about time, like, because we're always watching what time it is or whether we,
Mhm.
be without time, like without, like
Yeah.
not always be regulated. Anyway.
Yeah. I mean, I personally, I don't know how I got away with it, but I've, always been, not one to beat time. Like if there's an appointment or a meeting, yet someone has to call me. I usually miss it. And now I see it's a good thing. I didn't know it back then, but I'm glad I don't have that hook. I see people today, it's unbelievable what they go through with their family, and they have to go here and there, they're running around. Like,
Yeah,
what's the
right.
point?
I can see that. Yeah, like, oh God.
I feel sorry. It's horrible, actually. It seems horrible.
You're rubbing it in.
Oh, I'm sorry. Poor Jeremy. Well, Jeremy, I mean, it's just a stage in life right now.
No, I know. I'm good. No, I grew up in a family very much like what you're describing, Doug, and we were always like that. I mean, we would race because sometimes there are deadlines and times, but also we were very kind of disconnected from time, and it always was fine. It always did fine. But my wife is definitely she does not like to be late. and with kids, there's so many like little things you got to do all the time.
With kids, it's usually, I mean, I can't talk. I didn't have kids, so I good or bad.
But there's many ways to do it. I know lots of people that just let the let time flow. The
Yeah,
structure and this, yeah, it's all.
Yeah, but when you're young, the kids, I mean, I learned that through Waldorf because, I don't know, I had to look into that before I decide to have a child and everything. Rhythm is all important.
That's right.
Like one
Yeah,
of the things to learn in the body, the rhythm and the jumping and the stuff they do in class has to do with rhythm. And then later on, we progress in the awareness. So it's just a path. So for the kids, it's important that there's a
Yeah.
rhythm.
Yeah.
I'll never forget, I found report cards from first, second, and third grade after my dad passed. I mean, first, second, and third grade, I mean, how could you get a report card? Amazingly, on all 3 report cards, it said that if I wasn't so social, I would have done better. I mean, it just, that answers it right there. I mean, completely broken school, clearly.
Well, the school
Be
wasn't
quiet,
good.
shut up and sit
School's
down.
not good for you. School is not good for you. That school anyway, but that school.
Oh, it was bad. I know now it was bad.
Well, you
shut
saw
up and
through
sit
it.
down. Then they wonder why you're all pissed off all the time.
Well, through this on chapter 5, we know we must have creative expression. And through our creative expression, that will lead to knowledge. So the first question is, knowledge is cosmic, which we learned back in chapter 4. How can it be acquired? From page 34, it must be recollected from within the consciousness of self. It cannot be acquired from books or school, which is only information. How is pretty synchronicity right there, as we were talking about school. So when it says it must be recollected or recollected from within the consciousness of self, does anybody do any techniques for consciousness of self? Does anyone?
That would be meditation, I guess, would be one.
Do you ever do any mental dowsing?
No.
Do you do any mental dowsing, Giselle?
I've only tried it once with that pendulum, trying to clear my mind, not to put my thoughts in it, but that was it. Like, I know that it can be done. I've been hearing about it, but
that's what that means. It's the pendulum type work.
No, I'm not saying that that's what this means. I'm just saying it's a way to check in to your conscious self.
Mental dowsing, I mean, though, is the work with the pendulum.
Yeah, I'm gonna be right back. I'm gonna get a pendulum. I'll be right back. You guys can talk amongst yourself.
My wife has been doing that with the biogeometry.
oh yes, that's true. She's studying that, isn't she?
Right. Yeah.
I read a book once. I have it on the shelf. Went to see this teacher in Boise, Idaho once. And anyway, and his book is all about how to develop, be more intuitive about something. So the whole book was like, it give you a word, and you had to reflect on it. And then the next paragraph, it would eventually kind of develop it. But you needed to do some work to get to understand what that word, like the root of the word, the idea behind the word. So when Will asked if there was any method, like I did try that when you read this book. So it was kind of like you would focus on it, and then it was like a pendulum in a way. Anyway, it was a method that he was, by writing this fiction, if you like, this fiction book, how to be more intuitive. I liked it a lot, actually.
Well, I got into it with studying Jung and hypnotherapy. And there was quite a few people. I mean, it started with mesmerizing and stuff with pocket watches and animal magnetism and things. And what it is, the idea is that your conscious mind will speak through your body, actually through your fingers, into what they call ideomotor responses that will actually control, just a pendulum, or they use a pocket watch a lot. But say just the way that you calibrate it is, like forward and back is yes, and left and right is no. So if I just say, my shirt is red, can you see it going back and forth?
Okay.
My shirt is blue. Can you see it's going forward and back now?
Ah.
So that's a yes response.
Okay.
All right. And you can ask it different things.
The other way. I didn't see the other way though.
Okay, let me see if I can do it. It's kind of hard to. Okay.
Let me make it go, wait.
My shirt is red. Can you see it going back and forth this way?
Yes.
Okay, then I say my shirt is blue. And it goes front to back.
Very cool.
Yeah. Well, and this is a way that you can actually talk to your conscious mind.
That's very cool.
And
I heard you could pick your food like this. Like,
well,
you could go to the grocery store
yes.
and then you could pass this on, and then you'll know, it will tell you which food will be beneficial to you.
Correct. And those are a couple. There's mental dowsing, and then there's actually like biogeometry, where you're actually dealing with waves. So sometimes with the food, it's more of a wave. You can, like, how they do like with muscle testing with vitamins.
Yeah.
And so you can do that kind of thing. Like, say, if I pick up, I don't think I have anything here that's very beneficial, but I can pick up. It's like, say if I put this over my hand right now, see how it's just kind of sitting there? If it goes to the right or the left, if it spins counterclockwise, it's detrimental. So look how, pick up my phone up, just see how that thing starts spinning.
Oh, I know. I tried it on my phone.
So
It's going on its own? It just starts moving on its own?
oh yeah.
It goes like,
It can go pretty big. I mean, if I had something that was like, here's some water. Let's see if here's a glass of water. So let's just, so say when I pick up or put it over the water, right? You can see it how it's in a clockwise direction now, right? And if you can see the movement of it, it's not like if I was spinning it. It kind of has like a very magnetic spin to it. You know what I mean? Rather than just if I was spinning it myself. So this is one. I mean, these. If you go to the Discord, if you go to Eileen McCusick's site, she sells these for like $14. It's the cheapest I found. But they're really very handy. And if you want to do some mental dowsing to check with them, and you can ask it different questions about different things you have in your mind about, should I do this? Should I do that? And not because you're trying to tell the fortune, just as how's it settling with you.
What's special about that? That you couldn't just use anything on a stick? It needs to
No, you can use anything on a stick. You can use any, like I said, the
string, I meant.
The Jungians, and the people that got into that, there's a fellow by the name of Hall. I have some books on it. They used and like I said, Mesmer used a pocket watch. That's where the whole pocket watch thing came into being.
Right.
You can do anything that has a heavier. The issue is that when you start using metals or gems, I can control this with my mind too. I can make it move one way or the other just by concentrating on it.
Yeah.
And so the thing that's nice about this is it's a clear acrylic ball, so it doesn't have any other properties. It's harder to control it with your mind than if it has metallic or crystalline properties.
So I think Mike did the spoon bending thing.
Yes.
yeah.
Which was pretty wild.
Mm-hmm. So
most people don't believe it's possible, even if they see it. They would see it and say it's a lie, because they're so attuned to the media being the only thing you listen to. It's just they can't accept anything else. It seems to me. I may be talking out my ass, but that's what I think it is.
Well, I think it goes back to some of the questions that I asked earlier, is how many people actually believe, or how many people would want it, whether or not they believe it or not. Even if it was true, would they still want it?
Well,
Even if I knew that I could have the mind of God, would I want it? And that's a very big question, because as we started off with this thing earlier, Walter Russell says that every man's desire is to know God. And I would say, I don't know if that's true today.
I don't know either. It seems like, I mean, at least doesn't seem like it today.
I know I know I would like to experience that love they call with, I don't know, I feel like the ultimate love or something. I felt some of this sometime in my life. I don't know, just some glimpses, I guess. And oh my God, I could never be alone again. I do not feel alone ever anymore, because you know you're loved. That's all I can say for me anyway.
It's almost an advantage. I was saying the other day, but you know, like if you feel better about it. Well, sometimes years ago I used to be, oh, I'm going to be alone. You know, now I'm like, Jesus, thank God I don't have to deal with that other crap.
Yeah, imagine if you're not able to be alone with yourself.
It's very common.
You know what I mean? I'm very happy with myself on my own. And it's not because I'm separate. I'm a very outgoing person. And but yeah, I'm anyway, just saying. But imagine the people that are stuck in their home right now and they can't stand their thoughts, or they can't stand, you know what I mean?
Unluckily.
That would be hard. Sorry.
Well, again, I think that a lot of people can't stand their thoughts, and that's why you have to go back here to question one under creative expression, right? Stop thinking.
Yep. It's so
Well,
true.
I was suggested to at this time, you know, last year, a couple of years ago, if you know, do some painting, do something with color, anything creative, it'd be a good time. This is based on astrology. And it was interesting. Every sister, I have 3 sisters, everybody was painting in my family. They had never painted in their life. They all decided they wanted to paint. So instead of me painting, I got all their paintings in my place.
You were just the
But what
inspiration.
I meant is, I loved it so much. I said, could I have this one? Could I have that one? So I redecorated my whole place. My sisters have given me different painting. Anyway, just saying.
You were the inspiration.
It was inspiring, but it's interesting. They still paint together. Well, they're far away. Okay, yeah, I can't paint with them. They're all, but I'm just saying, it was all a stage. All of a sudden, everybody felt like painting, or, you know. So, you know, creative expression of some kind. It can be anything, really.
So we get back to our question, which knowledge is cosmic. How can it be acquired? It must be recollected from within the consciousness of self. It cannot be acquired from books or school, which is only information. So this is really my concept, you know, how I got my concept of Akashic intelligence. It was almost downloaded to me. And, you know, I think it was somebody last week was talking about Sadhguru. And he also talks about Akashic intelligence. And
he's a scary guy, though.
Yeah, he can be scary. But what we're talking about is that there's information, which is really what AI is, which to me is what computer AI is. It's artificial intelligence, but it's not the reason it's artificial intelligence is because it's only information. It doesn't really have intelligence. It's just collecting. Its omnipotence, its omniscience is that it's just a bunch of information. There's no real intellect behind it.
Well, they think otherwise, though.
Well, they they say that it is. So they have to write an algorithm actually to parse the information. But again, they have to use some type of basis for the algorithm of how they're going to discern the information. Their omnipotence, is that it's all powerful because it's all knowing when it really isn't all knowing, right? It's omnipresent because they're going to put up all these cameras all around and be all around us. But it's just information. It's not really knowing. And they're trying to say that it is knowing, but it's not knowing. It's just information. So
but they have so much control, though. That's the game that's actually they're playing.
And people don't know the difference today between information and knowing.
Yep.
Any thoughts on that?
They act like they do, though. They act like they're so smart, and they'll tell you they know, and they know nothing.
They know information. That's it. They don't really know. They don't have the knowing.
Well, when I talked to my my doctor from Europe, and then she became a homeopath. Anyway, here in Toronto, she went. She decided to do that because she would have had to redo her degree here. And she said, when she would go to some conference, because now she's internalized, she's doing her own work, creating her own work. If she went to somebody who said, oh yeah, this pill is going to do this or whatever, or this herb, and you tried to get the person to tell her, okay, tell me how it's going to help, your patients or whatever, they could not. She could. She came from she came from science, but she also came from another side. She's an intuitive. So she could actually see that they didn't actually understand what they had there. She knows more than they do because she actually, well, she also tried it out, but she knows, she can see what it does to the patient. So these people that come, oh, that's it, the protocol is this, and then she would go there, and they didn't like her questions because they can't answer their questions. They didn't really know. They didn't really know.
You're being awful quiet, Jeremy.
Well,
the kids are playing drums in the background.
well,
Stop just a second before I unmuted.
For you. They're playing drums.
Banging on pans and stuff like that.
Oh.
Yeah, but I'm just listening to. There you go. Can you hear it? I'm enjoying listening to.
Oh God. My brother, because he was older than me, he would be upstairs and he'd be listening to music and he'd banging something all the time, anyway, sorry. So I can remember that. I can remember my mom. Imagine all those kids, we had 7, how she could, oh, well, she's cooking, I guess, they're doing whatever. But I'm just saying, imagine when you've got that habit of every time you listen to a song, you got to do the beats. And anyway, yeah.
So we can't learn anything from books or from school. We have to be recollected or recollected from our consciousness, which is through meditation, right? There are other practices, through pendulums, and maybe through other different methods that we can to recollect or recollect what we already know. So question 2 is, can man draw right conclusions from his observations of matter in motion? And from page 35, only when he has acquired the ability to translate dynamic effect back to cause, until he knows the why of effect and its deception, no knowledge whatsoever upon which he can rely. He has no knowledge whatsoever of which he can rely. Any comments on that statement? Pretty bold statement. Pretty definitive.
So does that imply that there's enough context in information alone to be able to translate back to the information of the effect to translate back to the cause?
Well, I would say it'd be the first rule of Hermeticism, which is as above, so below. Because as above would be all things come from source.
Hmm.
And if man doesn't understand as above, so below, he'll get lost in the minutia of specialism, to where you become such a specialist that you know absolutely everything about nothing. To where, as what they do with the medicine, right? You have all these specialists that can only work on a very small area.
Yeah, they can only work on the ankle. Sorry, I'm just, I just can't stand those people. Sorry.
And a certain bone in the ankle, right? I mean, not just the ankle itself, just this one bone.
One teeth. No, I'm just joking. But
We're the nuts, and we're crazy to say that they're crazy.
Yeah.
That's the part.
well, anyway, we're
So,
picking on the doctors right now, but
Yeah.
whatever.
but it's with every profession,
It's in
actually.
it's in everything. So
Yeah.
you know.
So
But-
Will, you're like talking about pattern recognition, kind of, right? And the ability to kind of distill pattern. Like that's kind of what I think of when I think of that as of so below.
Well,
Correspondence. It's like the patterns that exist across layers. I'm not sure if that's quite the right word, but with information, there's a lot of noise. But if you can kind of like separate that out and see the inherent patterns that are mixed in with perhaps other ones, that's the separation challenge. But if you can draw those out, then you can trace it back.
Well, if we go back to cause, what's the initial cause, right? The initial cause is God's imagining. All things proceed from the center, which is empty and void and stillness. That all comes down into effect. We concentrate on the effect, not on the cause. And that cause is in those different planes. I think it was, let me see if I can actually bring up, did anyone see, I think it was Robert shared on Telegram, the diagram. Can you guys see my screen now with Telegram up? Is Telegram up
Yep.
on?
Yep.
I think Robert or somebody shared, it might have been this diagram right here. I think it might have, maybe it was Yannick. That was from Robert.
Like Da Vinci stuff.
Well, this is actually, I thought it was a Walter Russell. Man's Response by Walter Russell.
Oh.
So as we look at this diagram, see how we have the spiritual here? These are kind of the different planes and how they're layered. So we start with the spiritual, and then we go to the mental, and then we go to the astral, and then we go to the etheric, the X-ray, the light and colors at the eye. I found this very interesting. Is that you have the heart, and it's coming from the hand, which is like where we have a lot of healings, like
Heart or heat? Heat. Isn't
is it heat?
Yeah.
Oh, heat. I thought it was heart. So this is heat.
No, it's heat.
Okay, so this is coming from the hand here, and then we have, but it's also removed from the body, which I thought was kind of
yeah. That I was trying to understand that,
and I don't know if they put it out here just because they didn't want the crossover, for as an architect talking how the diagram would
Or the diagram, maybe.
is cleaner this way, and then you have electricity.
Where's that coming from?
This is coming from Walter Russell.
No, the electricity is coming from his mouth, or where?
I would say it looks like it's coming from his mouth, or it might be coming a little bit, kind of from his mouth, and then sounds coming from I think sounds coming from his mouth. So I think electricity is coming like maybe between
Out of his nose.
from the nose and the mouth, and then we have the realm of solids here. So,
Solids. Can't go into the bathroom.
well, it's actually the body. You're actually the body, right?
The whole body. Okay.
The physical plane, right?
I guess speaking of information and noise, like I wasn't quite clear whether those source lowercase s source locations of those cones were supposed to really correspond with parts of the body. The certainly the heat one makes it feel that way.
And look at the light at the eyes.
Yeah, I'll have to zoom in. It's true. It doesn't look like they all are from a particular point. It's just that some of that detail of these different location points feels hard to see in there.
Well, you see where the X-ray is? That's almost like the third eye, eh?
So it's, I mean, they're all kind of in the third. I mean, you can see the spirituals at the crown, right? Here's a crown.
Yeah, they're in there. Yeah.
The orb.
Yeah,
and then,
I guess it is.
And there's the mental, right? Which is really the upper lobe.
Well, I'm not smart about the hand. Like in Biggleson, they show like you rub your hand. This is in a seminar, and then you put it on your kidneys, you know, and you rub it there. So there is definitely, because it says about vibration per second. So actually, that's where it manifests. So you can use it. You know, use it on people. Use it on your food. You know, so it's interesting. This diagram, it really is.
Yeah, and you see right here, this little black dot looks like the pineal gland.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and how this, you know, I don't know what these axes are, right? That he drew, but this one's coming through the pineal gland. This one's coming through the forefront to actually. So, you know, this is a pretty interesting diagram.
Yeah.
And so, thank you.
You know, solid is like the physical plane, and
exactly
those two pieces are balanced with each other, spiritual and physical.
And you know, Dr. Londo recently, he keeps talking about it in different, he put snippets. He talked about the cell salts. I don't know if you saw that on the site, but anyway, but the one that he mentioned recently at some interview, specifically to do with the pineal gland, was Califos. Anyway, I haven't found anything on it yet, but I'm just saying, he'll give you these little things like, oh, okay, I have it here. I didn't know. So anyway, just, yeah.
He also talked a little bit about,
places.
he also talked about a little bit of, like this orb over the head, right? Of our area of consciousness. So I found, so thank you, Robert. Thank you for the.
Yeah, he gives us some really nice diagram.
And so we've gone through consciousness, cosmic consciousness. We've talked about creative expression. That's how we conceive. And the last thing we're going to go over here, as we're getting close on time, is chapter 4 is knowledge. So as we talked about before, right?
4 and 6, no?
Yeah, sorry, 6, sorry. So as we talked about this, so we have this deception. He has no knowledge whatsoever upon which he can rely only when he has acquired the ability to translate dynamic effect back to cause. So what's dynamism, right? It's movement. We're having this movement. We're seeing this cause. We're seeing somebody break out in a rash. We think it's from maybe something topical, maybe something hit the skin. But if we look at it, you know, if you're Hermetic, right, you're saying, no, it's proceeding from source. It's proceeding as above, so below. And that's where we begin to get into German New Medicine. That's where we begin to get into traumas, right? Things are expressing. They're expressing the mental plane, spiritual plane, mental plane, so on and so forth. You know, within German New Medicine, you might say, well, this is from a trauma. Then you might go higher up and say, did God want that trauma? You know, was that something that came from even higher up? And now it's expressing. And the only way he can get our attention, or source can get our attention, is actually to provide a blemish on our skin, you know? Because we didn't listen to any of the other items that we were given. So that's
how does this relate to like a car's going down the street? You know, its engine makes, you know, the power to move it. Is that unrelated?
Well, it could be, it could be looking at the car and saying the piston does it, right? No, it's the engine. Oh, no, it's the gas, right? The piston, the engine without that it's the, oh, no, it's the refinery, because you didn't have the refinery, you couldn't make the gas it makes, you know, and so you keep going back and back.
The engine in the first place.
Yeah.
Yep. Chicken or the egg.
But when we begin to look at the cause rather than the dynamic effect, the movement, the illusion of the movement, we try, and this is where you get into, and I'm going to stay with health because I think it's more people can relate to it, and I see it more often myself, is that we often think that, and with allopathic medicine, they try to address the effect, not the cause.
Yeah.
Right?
Which usually stops the healing.
Exactly. Because the expression is trying to, the expression is in itself the healing crisis that Bear talks about. And when we suppress the healing crisis, we just push it farther in.
The best one's got to be a fever. You have a fever. You have a fever. You take aspirin. What the fuck?
No, I know.
When I was a little kid, they used to say, you know, if I was sick, which I didn't get sick often, but I was sick, they said, stay away from the open window. And I hated school. So after the doctor would leave, I'd open the window and pull my shirt open, my sweaty shirt, to try to get the sicker. It never worked.
No, because you're getting fresh air and they're going to get healthier.
I got well all the time. I always got better.
See, you knew what to do.
So
Oh my God, I've got some fireworks again. I'm not sure why, but people are doing a lot of fireworks. We had a lot for Victoria Day, but it's happening again. Anyway, sorry.
They're killing each other.
No, this is actual fireworks. It's actually nice.
So Jeremy, did that answer your question, or?
I forget what my question was.
When I was talking about that, for question 2, only when he has acquired the ability to translate.
Yes, I got it right.
Back to cause until he knows the why of effect.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a good. It kind of brings it home to something. You know, brings that as above, so below back to the. In a way that I can relate.
Okay. Super. So. What we can end with this question, and we'll stop for the day. Number 3, is life in the body? Is life in the body? Per page 36, Walter Russell says no. Life is not in the body. Life is in the spirit. To heal the unbalanced body, one must give the balance of spirit. This is again, as above, so below. Back to the diagram, right? Starts at the head, ends at the physical manifestation. We go through all the different mastications: mental, astral, etheric, X-ray, color, heat, electricity, sound, into the solids. So this is, you know, for me, why German New Medicine makes sense. But again, it doesn't go far enough for me, because it's funny, because I had my feet, I was having a lot of problems with my feet and ankles. And I used to like surf and spend a lot of time in the water, in the ocean. And I've never had any issue with any type of marine animals or anything in the ocean. And when I was having all these foot issues, I got stung by a stingray in my ankle in the exact area where I was having all this pain and all these problems. And it almost felt like, you know, I could almost look at it and think that my body was drawing this animal to me for that area, you know. And
did it heal it?
No, it didn't heal it, because I didn't take care of it. Because it was a funny story. I'm in the water. I get hit by the stingray. We go to lifeguard. I'm like, why isn't there any signs out that, you know, there's stingrays in the water? Well, you know, the sharks usually eat them. Why isn't there any signs? You know, anyway, they just said, you know, put some salt on it. Well, I really should have done vinegar and a lot of other things. And because I wasn't,
Pee on it, right?
yeah,
That's
if
the-
you
yeah.
could have exactly put
Yeah.
ammonia on it, man. There's a lot of things I could have done that I didn't, and I was, you know, it didn't take care of it properly, so it got affected. I had to end up going to the hospital, getting antibiotics, which really
Right.
affected. But the antibiotics they gave me were so strong they affected all my ligaments and
Oof.
my joints and everything, and so now I'm having to detox from all that. So yes, but that was a different time in my life, and I know much better now. But again, I begin to think: do we actually draw issues to us also? You know, where we may get injured or may get hurt. I mean, these kind of things.
I think so. I was walking to the office in winter from the subway, going to my office, and this was winter and there's ice and all that. And I was just thinking, you know, that I think my bones are fragile or something. I don't know. I was thinking that, you know, maybe that I'm not, you know, and sure enough, I fell right there and broke an ankle.
Mhm.
I'm just telling you, it's when I feel vulnerable, if I think, then I can actually, you know, something can actually happen if you, I don't know, you know, your thoughts are very powerful, but you also can call it. It may be a good or bad thing, you know.
I decided I didn't get sick anymore, and I haven't.
Yay!
Might be a lucky streak. I don't know. It's been a few years. I mean, it's weekend sniffles, but nothing.
That's great.
No flus for quite a while.
With 2 kids, 2
Yeah,
or
they,
what?
yeah, they don't really get much either. We're all pretty
Good.
healthy here. Yeah. Just eat good food. Spread the love.
Well, it's the love part, you know.
Yeah.
That love vibration.
Mhm.
We need that love vibration.
we can be disciplined too. It comes from a place of love, so maybe.
That's good. Good. That's good.
So, and within this question, it says to heal the unbalanced body, one must give the balance of spirit. So, if the body doesn't have spirit, it would be in an unbalanced state, which would then allow for dis-ease, inflammation, other things to come in. So, are we talking faith healing here, or are we talking that it's a wholeness concept, mind, body, spirit? And, you know, I didn't really realize this, but as I was taking some Taoist stone medicine, which is from, you know, kind of traditional Chinese medicine, what happened when they brought a lot of the Chinese medicine to the United States, they left out the spiritual component because we, as Americans, didn't really want that spiritual component. We just wanted the herbs because that matched the allopathic model more.
Yeah.
Right.
But there's a whole side to the traditional Chinese medicine that still hasn't been really integrated into the Chinese medicine or the herbs that we see today, because almost all of them do, all the ancient healing methodologies incorporate spirit into the physical. And, you know, this is talked a lot about. I think Greg Braden talks a lot about it, when the separation between the church and the science came out, that the church said, we're going to take on the spiritual healing of man, and the scientists can take on the physical healing. And that was the separation between the two. And that never has come back together again. I mean, it's starting to now. I mean, we're starting to see it now. Walter Russell talks about it.
Santos talks about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we see more and more people. And I mean, like I said, it was not really forgotten. It was around in the 1900s. It was around in the 1800s. I mean, it's been around for a long time. It was, you know, 1800s, 1900s, and then about 1910, you started getting, Russell and Steiner and these other people who had these same thoughts. And then around, the 30s and 40s, you started getting the Rockefellers coming in with the medicine and breaking it up.
It was earlier, no? It was like 1915, I thought.
Well, that's when it kind of started. But even I know that FDR in the 30s had gone to a lot of the healing springs for his polio.
Yeah, they went to some pool, though.
Yeah.
It was a pool.
It was called It's called Warm Springs.
Yeah, yeah.
And and so they were still using. Yeah, and they were still using homeopathy back during his time, which was the 30s, maybe it was earlier 20s, because that was when he was younger when he first had it. I think he got elected in the 30s. So it's probably right about that time though. That's when that change really started taking place.
Disgusting.
And from that time on, we have had the model where we've actually separated any type of natural or and once you get away from nature, then you get away from God, right? Because you have no source.
I have a friend who's a homeopath who said if they just stopped spending the money on knocking it, just stop hurting it, it would be huge again. If they just didn't try to take it away.
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing. I mean, it was a money game.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
It is now as well.
So any
Like
more
even if everybody knew how much money was being spent, even if they kept spending it, that way it would probably start reverting. It's like people don't have that awareness of how much money is being spent. Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Anyway, sorry, go ahead, Will.
Well, it just seems funny to me, even within the current pandemic, that how much money they spent to provide the solutions they've provided, where if they would have just beefed up the original hospitals, and I mean, spend the money on providing more space, you wouldn't have to shut down all this other stuff, right? They did all this so they wouldn't have to provide more space because they were going to be overrun. Well, you could have just put more money into that, right? Just beef it up, right?
And you know that, when you look at what we're living in now, when you go out there to a store, I'm not talking about where I live, but this whole idea that people go in and they have to put that spray in their hands and they got to feel that they are germaphobe or whatever. Well, that's a certain type of people, but that's not me. And you know what? Like it's going to leave scars for a long time for certain people. But I'm just saying, no, they're not going to get me in that mode that I'm going to have to spray myself because I'm a germ or something. You know what I mean? Like that I'm a breeder of germs or whatever it is that they're trying to ingrain people, like that humans are not good. Sorry.
Yeah.
They're not going to win with me. That's for sure. But anyway, all I'm saying is it's not about money. It's about something else. Okay. So yeah, we can talk about how much money they spent here or there. And they always use the same method. When you study all the different plagues, they always use the same method, eh?
Same game book, same game.
Spray this, spray that. The boogeyman is here, whatever. Anyway.
So that's why if we get back to the cause and not the effect, we change our perception. And then once we realize that life is in the spirit and not in the body, if we know that life's in the spirit and we are losing life, or we're feeling ill, or we're losing our our chi or jing or whatever we want to call it, or vitality, should we work on the body or work on the spirit?
Obviously the spirit.
Mm-hmm. If that's where the life is.
Right. Where else is it?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And even this, I don't know who it was, but it was something about that, that something is living, that, the question was, can you die? Does it die or something? And he was like, life doesn't die. It's alive. It can't die. It's not part of it. I don't remember the whole rest of it, but it was like very clear the way he gave it off. But You can't die if you're alive. You could change, but you can't die.
And I think that when you look at Russell's cosmology and you see the cycles, right? The male, the female, the radiation and the gravitation, you're either in compression or you're in expansion. That is the matter that we're talking about, the matter on the earth, the things that are congealed by our waves. So the essence of what animates that matter is spirit. So that spirit never dies, but the matter goes through life and death cycles. But as we are dying, we are also being reborn. So those are just cycles of matter, not of life.
Yeah, well, I don't think they're actually living and dying though. That's, you know what I mean? I mean, they seem to be going away and coming back.
Mm-hmm, exactly. And we see that as life and death.
Well, some people do,
Yeah.
It's just the form. It's
Mhm.
it's the vehicle or whatever.
But it's not life. Life
No,
is in this. Life is in the spirit. All right, so we're going to end there today.
Yeah.
Hopefully, I don't think I had any other diagrams. I don't know if I did or not. Let's see if I did before we close out here. Did I pull up anything else? Give that quote. Let's see. The thinking of creative and successful men is never exerted in any direction other than that intended. That is why great men produce such a prodigious amount of work, seemingly without effort and without fatigue. The amount of work such men leave to posterity is amazing.
Funny that he wrote that, considering what he left.
Yeah, exactly. And you look at some of these artists like, Da Vinci and Michelangelo. I mean, it's huge amounts of work.
Yeah, unbelievable.
Steiner.
Mm-hmm. Steiner wrote,
Unbelievable.
God,
wrote so much.
well, in all kinds of subjects. That's what I mean. Like, it's not just one, it's everywhere.
But Walter Russell actually hung out with Steiner and Tesla even. Tesla told him that he shouldn't write this stuff down.
Mm-hmm.
But man's not ready for it.
I didn't know that he'd met Steiner. I was wondering whether there was any encounter between those two. I knew he had met Tesla.
I'm not sure.
I'm not sure he met Steiner. I would think he did.
I think he met, Walter, not only Walter Russell met him.
Walter Russell.
Yeah.
Or even did they write or correspond? I mean, they were contemporaries.
Well, I think that Steiner died in the 40s, 30s.
But they were born about 10 years apart.
Yeah, but Steiner died pretty young. He died like in his 60s, early 60s.
Right, after the Goetheanum, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then
his building, the Goetheanum, went down in a blaze. It was kind of like one of the culminations of his work, and I think that was spiritually, I guess.
Yeah.
Or something. Yeah.
Well, they say that anything that we manifest, has our energy in it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And as a craftsman or an architect or whatever, you're manifesting your energy or power into matter. So when something gets destroyed that you've manifested, it would have probably an effect on your vitality, especially how much of yourself you put into it.
I'll have to drop.
That's fine. We're ending. So thank you everybody for coming.
Yeah.
Thank you everybody for your input, and it's been very enjoyable.
Nice to see you all. And Will, thank you for organizing this as always.
Okay, you're all welcome. All righty.
Thank you.
Yep.
Bye.
Have a great day.
Can I press your computer?